Hi, this is Dr. Todd Curlis from Nova Southeastern University. In this segment, I'd like to talk about the development of performance objectives. A performance objective is a description of the intended outcomes of instruction, as opposed to the process of instruction. Objectives describe in very specific terms what students are expected to be able to do. They do not describe what the instructor or instructional program will be doing, nor do they describe the types of activities students will engage in during the course. Sometimes we talk about this in terms of the result of the instruction, as in, after the instruction the student will be able to. At this point, however, we still should not be thinking about instruction, but rather the performance of someone who can do the task. We're just describing the behavior being done correctly. Objectives provide direction for the rest of the ISD process. They serve as a kind of roadmap, influencing the selection of content and materials, and the development of assessment items and learning activities. As you progress through the remaining phases of the instructional design process, you will come to see how objectives serve as inputs to the design, development, and evaluation steps in the process. Objectives facilitate communication and agreement about the outcomes of instruction. This function is useful both during development and delivery of instruction. During development, it is important to get stakeholders, such as clients, managers, prospective students, and trainers, to agree on the intended outcomes of the instruction prior to moving forward with design and development. Objectives can be used to determine when or if intended outcomes have been achieved. Objectives keep training focused. They can be used to refocus at the end or beginning of a unit or module, control off-task and unrelated activities, and bring things back on track after having explored an interesting, although slightly off-topic, issue or question. During the delivery, they can be used to inform students of what will be expected of them, and as a check to make sure the outcomes of instruction are consistent with the students' personal goals. Students perform better if they have a clear understanding of what is expected of them. A performance objective consists of three components: behavior, condition, and criterion. The behavior component describes what the learner will be able to do or demonstrate. A statement of performance begins with an action verb that describes some type of observable behavior, like add the numbers, change a tire, or dig a hole. Avoid verbs that are vague or cannot be observed, like recall the Homeland Security color codes or know your email address. These fuzzy verbs can be changed to observable behaviors like list the Homeland Security color codes and state your email address. The condition component describes the situation, circumstances, or physical environment in which the learners are expected to perform. For example, will they be able to use any reference materials? Will they be given a case study to analyze? Will they be able to use a calculator? It is important that only those things which are considered instrumental to the performance be included as conditions. In most cases, it is unnecessary to specify the use of obvious tools like paper and pencil. The criterion component is used to evaluate learner performance on the objective. It is usually stated in terms of limits or ranges of answers that are considered acceptable, such as at least 5, within 25 minutes, or with 100% accuracy, or a qualitative judgment, such as the inclusion of certain topics in a report. Some other models add another component, audience, so you have audience, behavior, conditions, and degree. I prefer Dick and Carey's three-component approach. Theoretically, if you've done a learner analysis, your documentation will already clearly state who the instruction is intended for. In either case, these components don't have to be in that order, as you'll see in the examples that follow. Here's one example of a performance objective. Given a shoe with untied laces is the condition. It states not only what tools and equipment the learner has to work with, shoes and laces, but also what we call the initiating cue. When this person is presented with an untied shoe, they are expected to tie it. The behavior is tie the laces, simple and straightforward. The criterion, or how well we expect them to do it, is the final phrase. I'm sure there could be other criteria, but these are the ones I chose for this particular case. Now let's look at some non-examples. This is an example of focusing on the instruction rather than the outcome. The condition is a course on Microsoft Word. Granted, we want them to be able to create a document after having taken the course, but the course is not a requirement for being able to create the document. Maybe they learned by trial and error. The point is, we just want them to be able to do it. A better condition might be using a computer with Microsoft Word. The behavior has the same problem. It asks them to learn how to create. But that's the process of the instruction. What we're really interested in is whether they can create a document. So let's leave learn how to out of the objective. This example doesn't even have a criterion. We should add one so we can tell what kind of document is acceptable. Here is a possible criterion. Here is another typical problem with objectives. Here we are focusing on the assessment rather than the actual performance. Technically, you could say that this objective is correct if your goal was for the person to pass a 25-question exam. But what I had in mind here was that a person could add 2-digit numbers. First of all, let's start by concentrating on the behavior. When you write an objective, think about one instance of the behavior. So in this case, instead of thinking about 25 questions, let's just think about one question. I'll give them one problem which has one set of two 2-digit numbers. The behavior is to add these two numbers together. So a better condition and behavior would be, given a set of 2-digit numbers, add them. Now we have a problem with the criterion. With the exam, we would have accepted 80%. But if we accept 80% accuracy on this one problem, anything between 36 and 49 would be considered correct. Now that we're looking at a single problem, the accuracy that we want is 100%. We can say either with 100% accuracy, or just say correctly, since there is only one right answer. We could also just leave off that criterion. If we don't have any other criterion mentioned, we can assume that the criterion is correctly. Here is another example of the criterion problem. We have a condition, given an order for IV medication. We also have a behavior, administer the dose. It looks like we have a good criterion also, correct. But when you're drawing up a liquid into a syringe, you can't be exact. We need to know how close is good enough. I have gone to my subject matter expert and found that in most cases you have to be within 1% of the actual ordered dose. So if the order calls for 10 cc's, 10.1 cc's would be okay, but 10.2 would be over the limit. This may vary depending on the situation and the medication, so be sure to get your SME's recommendation. Let's compare that with the assessment way of looking at it. Plus or minus 1% would equal 99%. Okay, who wants to be that one patient out of 100 that gets the wrong dose? On that note, let's wrap up what we have talked about concerning objectives. First, the objective statement should have 3 components: behavior, condition, and criterion. The objective must focus on the outcome, that is, the actual performance, not the process of instruction. And finally, remember when writing an objective, you should refer to one single instance of the behavior. This is Todd Curlis. Thanks for watching.